Well, welcome to another morning as we dig into the papers. And of course, I do this together with Mama V. Owusu. We also have Joseph Akable, our court correspondent, who's going to be walking us through a number of matters, what to expect today, and of course, some of what panned out yesterday. I have this morning the Daily Guide, the Daily Dispatch, the Business and Financial Times.
Stick to the Graphic, Daily Statesman, and the Economy Times. Joseph Akable will join us and do the Ghanaian Times, and I think the Find the newspaper. So if you're ready, well, we thank you for making time and joining us on the review. So let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper on the front page. Of course, it is to be expected, the election petition. But here's the angle that the Graphic picks. I never implied Mahama won. According to Aseidu Nketia, who some say was grilled yesterday. And I guess the last... I'm not going there. Okay, so details of his testimony in the paper today. FDA approves clinical trial for COVID-19 herbal medicine. Ban on social gathering. Affected industry players count cost. There are wedding organizers who are complaining. There are MCs who are complaining because they've had to
why are you stressing MCs? I mean, do you have any information?
I'm just really, I'm just talking.
Well, you know, this is not a good season for people who are engaged, whether, what do you even call them? Event planners, decor people, MCs, DJs, not a good time. Because once you hear this, you know that, Charlie, market's now tons.
You can do a virtual MC in a
No one pays for that.
No, but I saw a couple, okay. Like on your wedding day, both of you are wearing masks. It looks a bit awkward. Why don't you do a virtual ceremony, okay? So that the pastor, pastor is on Zoom. The two of you are on Zoom. The MC is on Zoom, family and friends.
How do you show, children and others in future, Charlie? This was my, thing I didn't like. What was that again?
It would be nice, like a photo album, like a video version of it.
The funeral bit, I think the funeral bit, you don't really need. But wedding party, Charlie, it be some way.
But how about the one in mask? Like you're in mask, I'm in mask, and we're getting married.
How will we even know? I mean, how do you even know with the veil and everything? How do you know? The person behind the veil is actually...
we're not in normal times at all. All right, in the center spread, 6 envoys present letters of credence to President. World Leprosy Day commemorated. Ghana yesterday joined the rest of the world to commemorate this year's World Leprosy Day at Ankafo near Omina in the Central Region. The event, which was on the theme Beats Leprosy and Stigma, was held at the Ankafo Leprosarium and General Hospital. Details of that in the paper on the back page. Illegal mining threatens one district, one factory project in Obuasi. So according to this story, there's a one district, one factory project in the Obuasi municipality, which is into oil palm processing and is facing imminent collapse following invasion of its oil palm plantation by alleged illegal miners. Another policeman commits suicide. And I don't like the fact that, people didn't see them commit the acts, but we're comfortable saying blankly, that they committed
when you don't have
suicide.
All the evidence.
Exactly. So this is also another tragic one, because the policeman is no more. And according to the story, which is also a bit not clear if that's how things unfolded, he was unwell and had been off for a while, only resumed, I think, on the 29th of January or so, and he wanted some more days, but it wasn't granted. And after that, he was, the last time anybody saw him, well, is it the last time anybody, but, they found him dead.
I mean, the next time anyone saw him, it was his body that they were seeing. But you see, that brings to mind another aspect of all of this that we often overlook. The psychological effects of the work. I mean, in any work environment, you have your own, in the media, like what we're doing now, there are the pressures, and you have to deal with it somehow. In the police service, they also have theirs. And sometimes, I don't know what systems they have in terms of dealing with the psychological issues, the emotional issues that come up with the work. But I think sometimes, look at this case, like you just mentioned, he wanted more days off. Obviously, he wasn't feeling too well. And while we cannot state categorically that it was suicide, some of these things ought to be taken stock of because, I mean, the work they do is high stress and if not catered for, some of these things.
Sure, but the police service should be worried because this will be the second incident in a week,
right?
In a week,
just over a week.
No, the other one happened allegedly on Sunday, isn't it? So it will fall within the same week.
So it came within this week.
Exactly. When we come back and we're dealing with the matters proper, I'll touch on this herbal medicine that we're told FDA has approved. That story's been on myjoyonline.com since yesterday. That will be it really for the Daily Graphic newspaper.
Well, let's get into the Daily Guide now. After that, we'll bring in Joseph Akable. FDA approves COVID-19 herbal med for trial. What's the local name given it? Nibima. Yeah.
You're trying.
I was wondering how it was pronounced, though. Nibima. Okay. I know 2 victims, Takrade kidnapper says. He's still in the news. Samuel Odotuk Wales. Another police officer in suicide. Today, this is not the Ghanaian Times. I know as of yesterday, they wrote allegedly. Well, the Daily Guide is pretty emphatic with it. I didn't bring my figures, Aseidu Nketia tells judges. Mama V, did you bring your figures this morning? Because it appears yesterday the General Secretary of the NDC was a bit hot, and Justice Yao Apau took him on at the latter stages, and Charlie, it was some wavy, like Manifest song. But is it? I didn't bring my figures. Yeah, you say I'm coming to court, but if I didn't bring my figures, there are those figures provided by the Electoral Commission that we all know, and we're challenging them, right?
Charlie,
you don't want to get into those tricky waters.
I guess, for all of us who are following, we don't know, and it's not like they're marking your scripts right there, so you actually don't know. Sometimes people actually may think that he probably didn't answer a certain question right, but you never know what they were looking for. You get what I mean? Yeah.
And he kept making reference to, those, if I may cite exactly, if the figures are correct, with reference to what the Electoral Commission, put out, if the figures are correct. And that's actually what Justice Yao Apau had to take him up on at the end, saying, you've kept saying if the figures are correct, if the figures are correct. Now all figures are away. And that was where...
That's not on your Electoral Commission.
Well. But
don't create problems for your hearts.
I think so far, Aseidu Nketia, you may, if you know the court situation and the scenarios, you would realize that while it may appear comical at some point, I think he's carrying himself pretty well. Well.
I think he did.
Because the pressure, if you've not been in that situation and being bombarded by lawyers and a justice of the court, it's not easy. It isn't.
Yeah.
This one says FDA approves COVID-19 herbal med for trial. I've already taken that. This international story, I've been following it on the BBC, interests me. Military coup in Myanmar as Aung San Suu Kyi detained. And the way things are panning out here, just disastrous, really. Looking at San Suu Kyi's, I remember watching this movie, The Lady, a long time ago, actually based on her life. And what she's done, then coming into power and the sort of spiral we've seen, and now the military, taking over. Interestingly, the military chief also has an Aung in his name. I don't know whether they are related in any way.
This issue is one of those tricky ones, and I'm not sure that I've heard many people comments. I guess because of the disappointment that people felt.
Yeah.
I remember, when the minority group in Myanmar were attacked by the military, when it was reported, Aung San Suu Kyi, I remember very well, everybody wanted her to condemn.
I was so disappointed because she didn't.
That didn't happen.
She stayed away from that.
And that didn't happen for a very long time. So I don't know. I guess it's news to us in terms of this takeover.
World War II veteran supports COVID-19 fight. We've been telling you a bit about that. And when you turn to the back page of the Daily Guide, Tight security for Martial. I'm talking about Manchester United's Anthony Martial, who has asked Manchester United to help with security at his house after racist trolls targeted him and his wife online. A lot of people have been talking about this. Say no to racism, but the real beat is Charlie Martial in the team. I don't like racism, of course not. But it's football.
So people are targeting him because he's not doing so well on the pitch. Is that it?
Yes, partly.
And they're taking it home.
Yeah, they're taking it.
Oh, that's a shame.
They're overdoing it, so to speak. So
even Lampard, they let him go. They said he's still a legend.
What was that dig at the Yo, Lagos Sports Director gets UNESCO post. That's how I wrap it up on the Daily Guide. You, Okay.
It's Joseph with us. All right. Joseph Akable, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mama Viosu Apwaje and Benjamin Akaku.
You know, yesterday, do you also have to watch your comments? Or you don't wear the robe and the wig? You're free.
Oh, I'm free to the extent that I don't make comments that are in a contempt situation.
You are close to the court. You are in the premises. It's very close to the court, so no problem.
You know how I like the backstories, Joseph? Yesterday during Akutompal's cross-examination, there were moments where he was either shutting his team up or he looked frustrated at some point. When the cross-examination is going on, are they trying to tell him something?
It actually happens on all sides, including the Electoral Commission sides and the side of the petitioner. You know, it's a whole legal team. The difference I've seen with the side of Mr. Chikata is when Tony later wants to say something to him, he writes it on a piece of paper and puts the paper in front of him. And trust me, it's very interesting. I wish our cameras were upstairs as well. Mr. Chikatan does not pick the paper up. Like in talking, he turns a little bit, then you see him look down while he's still talking, then he continues with what he's doing. Sometimes the paper comes from as far back as Sami Jemfi, who writes a note, gives it to Eduji, who is just behind where the lawyers sit. Then Eduji hands over the paper to Mr. Lita, who puts it on the table. Mr. Chikata never picks the paper up. I've seen the EC side too. One Miracle Atachi, who is part of the legal team, also come with a tablet and show the tablet to Mr. Amedovo as well. For the side of the second respondent, what I've seen done is that they tend to communicate. And so because of the microphones being off, so they turn it off or they try and talk. Because you know they are in the mask, you may not necessarily hear what they are saying, but those who are closer, you see.
But we hear what their lead counsel says.
He was making the point. There was one that the microphone was a bit on, so he was saying that he can't. He said, "I can't confront them with the EC's figures." That one I think it's on social media.
No, yeah, because we also had it clearly here.
Yeah.
And the bit about the court's technical team, their IT people. I think this had to do with the pen drive, and when they were not finding the exact folder, the commentary back there was they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. I think at some point they wanted to go and show them.
The court was informed that the EC's lawyer has been able to successfully open the file, and so they should take a look at that file.
Yeah, and then there was also another light moment there after Aseidu Nketia was discharged. What did they wanted to know his general position?
Or they were making a point that in his witness statement and even in his introduction, he had not indicated that he is the general. And Mr. Nketia's response was that, when Justice Yaope was about asking him the question, he said, "General, you've been saying if did you come with your own figure?" So he made a point that the general had already been announced by a senior member of the panel. So the general is officially on record. And he made a point that, he had said at a point that he was palm wine. He was into palm wine distillery, and so they made a point to him that he should make some of the palm wine available to the panel as well.
Yeah,
the sort of things that go down in court.
Yeah. There were lots of quotable moments yesterday when Akutompal says, "Don't create problems for your hearts." he was talking to Aseidu Nketia. Well, anyway, let's go through the papers that you have, Joseph.
Yes, I have two of them. I have the Ghanaian Times and a couple of other papers. So let me start quickly with the front page of the Ghanaian Times this morning. It says, Akufo-Addo crossed 50% +1 to win election, Akufo-Addo affirms. And the government tightened restrictions to curb COVID-19 surge, also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. And it has another image here talking about how to wear a non-medical fabric mask safely. So that is some good advice there. In terms of the back page of the Ghanaian Times, it has this story about the FDA. It says FDA NMRA approved herbal medicine. And that is the Noguchi Memorial Research Institute, I should think so. Let me just be sure about it. The Food and Drugs Authority and the National Medicine Regulatory Agency. So that's the National Medicine Regulatory Agency. We are told that they've approved herbal medicine for COVID-19 clinical trial. That's on the back page of the Ghanaian Times. The front page of the Finder now, it has some stories related to the court. Aseidu Nketia fails to produce NDC's own collated figures. It's on the front page. And if your case is bad, even the most skillful general will be exposed upon Nkrumah. 90% of our members received stimulus package. Aboso Kai spare parts dealers thank Nana Addo. And another policeman commits suicide, also on the front page. CEO of Radio Gold, Bafo Boni, is dead. It's another story, very sad one there. And FDA approves herbal medicine for COVID-19 clinical trials, also on the front page of the Finder newspaper.
All right, let me do the Daily Statesman newspaper front page. Akufo-Addo's 50% +1 score confirmed as Aseidu Nketia runs from his own witness statement in court is the interpretation they put on this bit of his testimony. Also, 6 envoys present credentials to President. Bank of Ghana maintains policy rate at 14.5%. It comes with a picture of the Bank of Ghana Governor, Dr. Ernest Addison, who you may know by now that he's gotten another offer. He's staying at the Bank of Ghana for another 4 years. On the back page, they've got some sports stories. I'll leave that to Rico Ampo for when he comes right after the review with details in sports. So that's it for the Daily Statesman newspaper.
Let's quickly catch up with what the Daily Dispatch says. It says videotapes of Mahama and Aseidu Nketia claiming NDC won 2020 played in court. 2020 parliamentary results. You can check that on pages 3 and 6. Ibrahim Mahama, from a school dropout to a top businessman. You know, some of these stories, you can find that on page 11, but they make people think, school no cry on Charlie. Because you look at the Bill Gates and the Zuckerbergs but then others would ask you, where did they drop out of? They are dropping out of Harvard and the rest. I was saying, it is not true. NPP MPs are not supporting relief for students, Afenyo Markin, and then meet the journalist who worked at the castle and armed one of Rawlings' unknown bodyguards. So those stories are in there. On the back page, you would find a story about Rawlings' only surviving paternal sister, Judy John. And if you know why the John is at the end, because his name was actually, when he joined the military at a point, there was that error, but John was actually his surname. And then videotapes of Mahama and Aseidu Nketia claiming NDC won last year's polls played in court. Mamavi, I'll just do this one. So for this story, the excerpts, it says, Aseidu Nketia, my lords, what transpired between Aseidu Nketia and Akufo-Addo after the tapes were played? Aseidu Nketia, my lords, those are my pictures and those are the words that came from my mouth. Akufo-Addo says, I'm putting it to you that in the video you said the NDC had won 4 seats and that puts us in a clear majority and will be giving President Mahama the needed majority in parliament. Nketia responds, my lords, those are my words. Akufo-Addo comes back, I am putting it to you that you thereby implied that President Mahama won the elections. And then Aseidu Nketia says, my lords, I implied that I expected President Mahama to win the elections. Every evidence was pointing at Mahama's victory. And in fact, my laws permit me, in all the 7 parliamentary and presidential elections that have been held in the country before this one, the presidential candidates and the political party which wins and controls parliament ends up winning the presidency. And then Akoto Ampao comes in. Mr. Aseidu Nketia, don't lecture us, answer the questions. You can't lecture us. If you missed it, those are some of the scenes from yesterday. And I don't think the heat is going to get any better. So maybe later, Joseph will tell us about what to expect. More fireworks today, likely.
All right, time for us to dig into more of what's in the papers.
Okay, so you're done with your stack?
Yeah, I'll let the Economy Times go because, you know, the debts issue, I think you read it yesterday in one of the papers.
Okay, so I'll just add this one from the Business and Financial Times. Pandemic's new wave pushes Bank of Ghana to stay policy rate again. That's another topical one. All right, so let's delve into the details now.
I want to talk about this clinical trial for COVID-19 herbal medicine, but just so I don't forget, because I forgot it yesterday, there was news coming from the Ashanti region, and Joseph, it has to do with your people, the lawyers, and I think the story was that there were some lawyers in the Ashanti region, maybe to be specific in Kumasi, who were can I say defrauding, taking people's wives and cars and things, like, yeah. What is that about? And the GBA can't do anything about those things?
Has it brought to the attention of the
GBA says when the petition comes to it, they take it over to the General Legal Counsel. You know, the General Legal Counsel is the one that can exercise that kind of restraint, especially when it relates to professional conduct. And so those matters are referred. The Vice President of the GBA in the region explains that when those petitions come, they try to engage the lawyers who question the jurisdiction of the GBA to deal with it. So eventually they have to refer it to the General Legal Counsel. And when it goes, she says, we know what happens there. Some of them are disbarred or suspended for a period of time. And so that is what is happening. But yes, the claim is that the lawyers are defrauding their clients, taking their clients' cars. Some lawyers, I must add, and others are taking people's wives as well. And,
but you know,
I shared a link on Facebook, and my lawyer friends were not too happy.
When I read it, Joe, and Ben, I was thinking, so how did they take the wives? Like, is it because they can't pay for their services? So they exchange that with their wives or what? I understand the cars bit.
That one beats, but I don't know. Honestly, the car bit I can get, but a wife, I mean. Or maybe it could be that, the lawyers were.
The circumstances leading to the taking.
No, Joe, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm saying taking is taking. Like, I mean, they've taken. I mean, whether it was as payment for legal fees or not, they've still taken a wife.
Everything we take.
Okay, no, listen, but on a more serious, we hope that they will be able to uproot all those bad nuts. I mean, some of the stories that people shared from our reports was that sometimes they know that you have such a bad case, they will not advise you. They will lead you on, and then you lose and they still would take their fees. But the point is, whether you lose or not, that one, they've worked for you. It doesn't matter that you lost. They will still have to
I was just about to add that. You must also go with some, intelligence, pursuing whatever matter. And if you feel it's not going to wind up in anything, why waste your resources? Because some of these lawyers, look, some of them are not getting enough cases. That's the reality and all of that. They will want a case where they'll earn their bread. So you must also be circumspect. Okay,
so this FDA approves clinical trial. So what it means is that they would test on volunteers, human volunteers, okay, to see whether they should be approved for wider use in the general population. And we pray that this really, really works. You are asking for the name, how to pronounce the local name of this herbal medicine. It's Nibima. I'm sure it would come from one of our local languages or something like that. But the scientific name is what I want to try. Cryptolepsis sanguinolenta.
Reminds us of our days of Musa Sapientum and Charlie. Don't go there. Let's leave this one for the scientists. But
thank you.
But the Nibima, okay, I know that our local languages, right, we don't observe a lot of stress patterns like Kofi, it's flat. So I was thinking Nibima would be, because Nibima sounds more anglicized, but...
Oh, so more like Nibima. That's what you mean?
Kind of.
Oh, okay.
Like. But why even bother about pronunciations? It is what it is. And at least the FDA has been telling us they are grade 3 when it comes to the World Health Organization's rankings, which means that what they're doing in this respect, it's tried, it's tested. We just want to know how effective this will be. There are some benefits.
Actually already being used as a herbal treatment for malaria. Yeah.
So some benefits.
It's already on the market.
Question now would be whether they can add other things to make it even more effective against COVID-19.
I can understand why it is associated, because we know that malaria medicines are being used in the treatment of COVID-19. So, all right, any other picks?
I'll do this one from the Daily Guide newspaper on page 11. Very worrying one. Zoko residents cry for water. And the dry season in the Upper East region is becoming severe, and as usual, communities have started experiencing drought as their streams and dugouts have either dried up or the water levels have drastically reduced. One such community is Zoko in the Bongo district in the region. For years, the residents of the community lacked a reliable source of water that could have served them for up to even 6 months. It goes on to say the community lacks boreholes, and residents have been complaining that they have been forgotten by successive governments and DCEs. And so that's a call there by this community. According to Azure Ayampoka, a resident of Zoko, there is one borehole in a nearby community that serves both communities, saying, now that we're in the dry season, we have to wrestle for water. It is a real struggle. And this is reality right here. We sit in Accra and sometimes think everything is here in Accra. Now here's a community struggling just for something as basic as water. Look at the SDGs and what they say. So that's just the story I wanted to touch on.
Nice. Joseph?
The suicide story, you know my background is I'm a pocket psychologist, you know that. Yeah, it was a bit of a worry to me. And it's I always say that there's an aspect of our society that we don't pay attention to, mental health. A lot of the time when you meet people and you ask them, how are you doing? It's like the default response must always be, I am fine. But we need to get to the level where people should know that there's nothing wrong with saying that, look, I'm sad, or I just don't feel myself. Because the psychology and the data available in that science indicates that when people talk about their problems, when you talk about your problems, even without getting solution, that alone helps ease the burden that it places on you, or it puts you under. And so let's try and open up to people that we trust, and learn to trust and open up to people in that manner. And also, when you are friends with someone and you realize that a person is withdrawing a bit, because a lot of the time that's how those things start. People withdraw, they don't talk much. You see clearly that this colleague of yours is changing in how the person is behaving, and you don't pay attention to it. And eventually the next thing you hear is that, such a thing has happened. When maybe if someone had interacted with the individuals involved, that is to assume that it's actually suicide that has taken place. Because I agree with the point that Amavi made earlier, that starting the investigation should always not start from the belief that, look, it is suicide. There are people who kill people and set up the police to look at suicide. But I think generally we also need to pay attention to the mental health of our colleagues and try and open up and interact with people more, so that we'll be able to deal with this. Because as a friend was saying the last time, Charlie, pressure day town.
Pressure day.
Yeah.
But before you delve into the court issues, and Mama V, just wanted to add this. That's why we even say that a problem shared is a problem halved, oftentimes. But at the same time, in our own community, our society, and the rest. So you keep everything inside, and before you realize, it's an explosion or an implosion, if you like. Joe?
I say to myself all the time, especially when I'm breaking, it's okay not to be okay. And there's a piece of music that says that to me, and I play it when I get to that point. Listen, we're not superhuman, so, we all have problems. We all have our own problems. So thank you, Joseph, for highlighting on that. Let's talk about what we should expect today going forward. Is Professor White in the box?
Yes, Dr. Michael Professor White, and he will be cross-examined based on his claim that he was in the National Collation Center and they discovered in the course of the collation that there were errors, and they tried to bring it to the attention of the Electoral Commission chairperson, only to be told to go and consult Mr. Mahama at his residence. When they got to the residence, they saw the declaration was being done on TV. And so that petition, if you recall, Mr. Aseidu Nketia was asking questions about the petition and whether or not those concerns in the petition are incorporated into the main petition that was filed by Mr. Mahama. And so that would be the center stage for those particular questions. You recall that there was a question also to Mr. Aseidu Nketia about some regional results that had been signed by Rojo Metununu, and he had made a point that Dr. Kwesa White was in a strong room and would testify to that. And so that issue would also come up equally. And so Dr. Michael Kwesa White will be in the box this morning.
So I take it that we should not expect a long cross-examination because the aspect of his testimony is limited to the strong room. Is that the sense that I get?
It's limited to the strong room, but I mean, certainly Mr. Kotampa will have some questions and may require of him to make use of the calculator as well. And so we have to see how that goes. But what we are sure of is that the Electoral Commission is lawyer, as we've seen over the period, he's quite direct and sticks to what he wants to put across quickly and wraps up. And so hopefully that will not take too long. But I mean, it's all it depends on what the lawyers intend to do. I mean, so maybe at the close of day, God willing, we'll be able to wrap up with Dr. Kwesa White so that we now move to the EC chairperson.
And then there's also the Peter McMahon also standing by, right?
That is so.
All right, Joe. We thank you for joining us here on the review. We'll let you go. I'm curious. Joseph, stay. The seats that you have, is it your seats? It doesn't matter what time you get to the court. The number is your number?
Yes, it's number 87. That is my number. It's upstairs. And there's that seat that I've sat in all throughout. If you come in and someone who does not have a number decides to sit on your seat, you can drive the person away. But that's my seat number. And that is the seat that I've used all through the period.
Okay. Ayo.
And is it tied in any way to the observation of the COVID protocols and all of that?
Yes, there's good spacing. And so no one sits close. So one seat, there's a space, then another seat comes in. And the same thing is done downstairs as well, where the lawyers and the parties to the case also sit. There's one seat, then a space in between, and all the seats are equally numbered. You have an accreditation tag that has your number on it as well. And so I have never gone to meet someone in my seat. It's always empty when I get in.
But Joe, are you guys using fresh air or you're in an air-conditioned courtroom?
It's an air-conditioned courtroom, I must say.
All right.
But I mean, you know how the Supreme Court is. It's those old buildings where the roof is quite far off. You know, the old type of building, not the current ones where the roof is quite close to you. The roof is far off. So it's like a very spacious place, very huge building.
Okay. All right, Joe. Thank you very much. All the best with the court proceedings today. Joseph Akablay is our friend and our court correspondent. He will be in court for the election petition. Remember, if you want to have a conversation with us, and we thank you for using our hashtag AM shows already in the trends this morning.